Hello students, I am Dr. Himanshu Kanpal, Assistant Professor English, Government MS College for Women, Bikaner. Today we will study the text of the poem Tears, Idle Tears by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Tennyson's Tears, Idle Tears combines beauty with sadness in a way that causes a reader to feel empathy for the speaker. Tennyson's speaker is able to depict the sorrow of mourning and devastation of lost youth. The poet brings attention to what it means to age. To age means to grow old and become aware of the darker side of life. In particular, the speaker mourns over the days that are gone and will never return. He also feels sorrow for those who have lived and died before his time. By the time a reader gets to the end of the poem, it will be clear that the speaker is narrating the piece from beyond the grave. In conclusion, tears, idle tears, bring attention to feelings intimately connected with aging, such as regret, reminiscence, and despair. Now we are going to begin with the first stanza of the poem. Tears, idle tears, I know not what they mean. Tears from the depth of some divine despair rise in the heart and gather to the eyes in looking on the happy autumn fields and thinking of the days that are no more. Here, the poet says that tears, idle tears. Idle means tears that cannot be explained. So, in the first line of this piece, the speaker or the poet describes how he feels tears in his eyes. He doesn't know why they are there or what has caused them. I know not what they mean. This leads to the description of them as being idle tears. So, the poet's eyes are filled with tears, though he does not know the cause of his tears. The tears are perhaps due to some deep spiritual sorrow, tears from the depth of some divine despair, some deep spiritual sorrow which makes him dissatisfied with his present mental state. And so this despair, this discontent makes him sad and full of sorrow. Tears from the depth of some divine despair rise in the heart and gather to the eyes. It is an emotion that has suddenly overwhelmed him and his brain is yet to catch up to his heart. The only thing that is clear at this point is that they come from the depth of some divine despair. The speaker feels something spiritual building up inside his soul. It is close to being divine or godlike. Generally, when something is described as divine, it is angelic, joyful, and glorious. But here it is different though. It is divine despair. He goes on to describe this feeling as rising in the heart and gathering to the eyes. So, here the poet's heart is filled with a strange discontent. The tears that appear in his eyes are caused by some sad, strange, heartfelt sorrow. In the last line of this stanza, that is, in looking on the happy autumn fields and thinking of the days that are no more. Here the poets want to convey the idea that when the poet looks at the autumn fields, he is reminded at once of the heavenly glory and splendor of the earth. So, the last two lines of this stanza, the speaker reveals what has triggered this divine despair while also providing the setting. What he is doing? He is looking on happy autumn fields, but they do not provoke in him a feeling of joy as one might expect for what he is doing. And in looking on the happy autumn fields and thinking of the days that are no more, he becomes sad and sorrowful when he is reminded of the coming, when he is reminded of the past, of the thinking of the days that are no more. Rather, the fields fill his heart with despair and bring tears to his eyes. He is not sure why this is the case. The speaker does tell the readers, however, that it is something about the days that are no more that has caused this feeling of despair or discontent. Fresh as the first beam glittering on a sail that brings our friends up from the underworld, sad as the last which reddens over one that sinks with all we love below the verge, so sad, so fresh, the days that are no more. In the second stanza, the speaker reveals that the pain he feels at this moment of recollection is as fresh as it was the moment he first experienced it, fresh as the first beam glittering on a sail. Then in the second line, he reveals why thinking about lost days causes him such pain. He claims that his memories bring our friends up from the underworld. Here, it becomes apparent the speaker is thinking about people who have died before him. The wound feels fresh as the memory of their lives and death spring upon him. So, in this stanza, the poet described the memory of the past by using two similes. The first simile, the memory of the past is as sweet and pleasing as the first rays of the rising sun falling upon the sail of a ship. That is, fresh as the first beam glittering on a sail. So, the memory of the past is as sweet and pleasing as the first rays of the rising sun falling upon the sail of a ship, which brings our dear friends from distant lands, that bring our friends from the underworld. Underworld here means realm of the dead. Sad as the last. The second use of simile, it is sad as the last which reddens over one that sinks with all we love below the verge. It is as sad and painful as the last rays of the setting sun falling upon the sail of a ship, which takes away our dear friends to distant lands. That sinks all we love below the verge, so sad, so fresh, the days that are no more. So here the past is described as fresh and strange. In the third paragraph, the speaker declares past as not fresh but sad. Sad and strange as in dark summer dawns, the earliest pipe of half-awakened birds to dying ears, when unto dying eyes the casement slowly grows a glimmering square. Glimmering square, it means sunrise makes it glow. The sunrise makes the casement glow. In the third stanza, the speaker says that he finds these days gone by as very strange. Throughout Tears, Idle Tears, the speaker seems unable to fully understand his own feelings. He does not exactly know where the tears come from, nor does he know what divine despair causes them. Here, in this paragraph, in this stanza, the speaker states that the feeling in his art is strange as in the dark summer dawns. He then describes the sound of birds as they are just awakening and contrasts that sound with his own feelings. The speaker knows that he is in his last days, like the birds. It is strange thing for dying ears to hear the birds beginning to wake. As he hears the birds and thinks about the days gone by and how few days he has left, he considers the casement. This is a reference to the part of a window that hinges open. It is dissolving before his eyes into nothing more than a glimmering square. I am going to take this stanza once again. Sad and strange as in dark summer dawns, the poet says that tears coming to his eyes are sad and strange, like the earliest pipe means song of birds of half awakened. The tears coming to his eyes are sad and strange, like the song of the birds heard first of all in the early morning. The earliest pipe of half-awakened birds to dying ears, heard first of all in the early morning by a dying man. The senses of the dying man became weak. To dying ears, when unto dying eyes, the casement slowly grows a glimmering square. The window reveals its square shape slowly and faintly to the eyes of the dying person in the early morning. So, the chirping of the birds and the shape of the casement or the window appear sad and strange to the dying man. In the same way, memory of the past is sad and strange for the poet. The poet described the intensity of his feelings by using two similes in the next paragraph. When he says, dear as remembered kisses after death, as sweet as those by hopeless fancy faint, on lips that are for others, deep as love, deep as first love, and wild with all regret, O death in life, the days that are no more. The speaker declares the past to be dear, sweet, deep, and wild. So, in this stanza, the poet describes the intensity of feelings by using two similes. He says that memory of the past joys is as sweet as the kisses of the beloved, who is now dead, leading behind a memory of love. So the imagined kisses bring great joy and delight to the lover, dear as remembered kisses after death, and sweet as those by hopeless fancy faint. But they cause intense pain also. They are painful because the lover knows that his beloved now belongs to on lips that are for others. Painful because the lover knows that his beloved now belongs to others. Hopeless fancy faint. Here it means sweet as hopes that one has to kiss someone who has lips meant for others. Deep as on the lips that are for others, deep as love, deep as first love, and while with all regret, O death in life, the days are that no more. So the memory of the past joy is deep. It is as deep as the first love, whose memory is never going to fade away. So it is full of profound sadness. The memory of the past fills the heart of the poet with regret and makes life full of pangs of death. So the memory of the past joys is so painful and so vivid that it is a constant agony. It is a death in life. It is the cause of constant agony. O death in life, the days are that no more. A living death to realize that those happy days will never come again. So, the poet here is expressing the feelings for the days that are no more. So, this is the final stanza. It becomes clear that speaker is narrating from beyond the grave. He tells the reader that kisses after death are sweet and dear. They are compared to those experienced in life that are hopeless fancy faint. The speaker is relating the emotions of death to those of love. Death is filled with the same mourning and hopefully joyful reception into another world. Lips will often want kisses that are meant for others. The same goes for the speaker who wants to continue in his life but is unable. So, the final lines are less structured than those which have come before. The speaker is enraptured with the loss of his days and attempting to relieve the emotions of the first love. There is an amount of regret that has followed him to his death, but his days are no more. There is nothing to do about anything left undone at this point. So, everything is summed up in the last lines of the poem, Death and Life of the last stanza. So, in this, all the four stanzas of the poem and with these words, the days that are no more. The poet uses many adjectives for this example: fresh, sad, strange, dear, sweet, deep, and wild. So, this short lyric, Tears, Idle Tears, by Alfred Lord Tennyson, is a good example of Tennyson's great art. Thank you.